Imagine this. The air was a thin poison, tasting of ozone and dust, and his suit's integrity monitor screamed a single, endless red. That's exactly what happens in today's Omni-Fi original.
The first thing Kalen felt was the cold. Not the sterile, recycled chill of the Argent Lance's medbay, but the profound, absolute cold of a dead moon's surface. His lungs burned, a raw, ragged sensation, as he dragged himself from the wreckage of the dropship. The air was a thin poison, tasting of ozone and dust, and his suit's integrity monitor screamed a single, endless red. He'd been caught in the blast radius of a shard cannon, the crystalline weapons of the Luminar hegemony designed not to kill, but to atomize. And yet, he was alive. He could feel the fractured ribs knitting themselves together under his skin, the puncture wounds in his abdomen sealing with a faint, electric tingle. The hegemony's triage drones, sleek obsidian shapes that descended like vultures, hovered over him. Their optical sensors pulsed with a soft, analytical blue. They had never seen a creature like this. A mammalian biped, fleshy and fragile, yet mending wounds that should have been instantly fatal. One drone extended a crystalline probe, its tip humming with energy, to sample the flesh of his rapidly healing shoulder. Kalen flinched, a primal reaction, and the drone recoiled as if stung. It was an anomaly, a statistical impossibility. The hegemony's medical texts, stored in their vast archives, had no entry for a species that could rewrite its own biology in the face of death. He was a living paradox, a ghost in their machine, and they had no protocol for him. They simply watched, their cold, logical minds struggling to process the miracle of his survival. The Argent Lance was a tomb. Most of the crew was gone, their bodies vaporized or crushed. Kalen, a low-ranking Marine with a knack for being in the wrong place at the right time, was the sole survivor. His suit's internal chronometer told him he had been exposed to the lethal atmosphere for 17 minutes. 17 minutes of his cells screaming in protest, of his lungs attempting to draw breath that was slowly turning them to glass. And yet, he lived. The healing wasn't fast, it was agonizing. He could feel his bones grinding back into place, his skin knitting over muscle with a wet, tearing sound. Each breath was a battle against his own body, a testament to a resilience he'd never known he possessed. He stumbled through the wreckage, his boots crunching on frozen soil mixed with crystalline dust. He needed to find the ship's black box, the data core that held the coordinates to the archive of all things. It was his only chance. The hegemony had destroyed his colony, his home, and now they sought to erase humanity from the galactic record. He wouldn't let them. He found the core lodged in a twisted section of the corridor, its casing cracked. He pried it open, his fingers clumsy and stiff. Inside, a single, pulsating crystal glowed with a faint, blue light. He pocketed it, the cold stone a stark contrast to the warmth radiating from his own body. He was a walking contradiction, a being of flesh and bone defying the laws of physics. And he was going to make them pay. The archive of all things was not a place, but a state of being. It was a nexus of information, a non-dimensional space where the history of every known species was stored not as data, but as living memory. Kalen arrived not in a ship, but in a shimmering field of light, his mind momentarily stretched thin to accommodate the transition. He fell to his knees, the black box core clutched in his hand, and vomited. The archive was overwhelming, a cacophony of a billion voices whispering in his mind. He saw the birth of stars, the slow, silent death of galaxies, the rise and fall of empires. It was too much. He needed an archivist, a guide. He stumbled through the luminous pathways, his human senses struggling to perceive the architecture of the place. It was all angles and light, a labyrinth of pure thought. Then he saw her, Lyra, a being of spun crystal and captured starlight, her form shifting between a dozen different geometric facets. She was an archivist of the highest order, a keeper of the Luminar hegemony's most treasured histories. She turned as he approached, her multifaceted eyes narrowing. A fleshy creature, she observed, her voice a chime of resonating glass. You are an intrusion, an error in the system. Kalen, gasping for breath, held up the core. I have the coordinates. I need to find the human entry. You have to help me. Lyra's facets pulsed with a cold, analytical light. Human? The species designated Homo sapiens? A brief, violent, and ultimately irrelevant footnote in galactic history. Their entry is corrupted, fragmented, incomplete. She gestured with a crystalline limb, and a holographic display flickered to life. It showed a chaotic mess of images: war, famine, brief flashes of art and music, and then a void. The human timeline simply ended. They were exterminated by the hegemony's predecessors, the Shard Collective, millennia ago. Your presence is an anomaly, a paradox. Kalen's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic, living drum. No, my colony, they're alive. The hegemony attacked us. They're trying to erase us. Lyra's form shifted, a facet spinning slowly. The hegemony seeks to maintain order. They purge chaos. Your species, with its unpredictable biology and its propensity for self-destruction, is a fundamental threat to the stability of the archive. She leaned closer, her presence a pressure on Kalen's mind. You are a walking wound in the fabric of reality. Your healing factor, it is not a biological advantage. It is a violation, a glitch in the cosmic code. Kalen refused to believe her. He was a soldier, a survivor. His body was his weapon, his shield. A violation? I watched my friends die. I should be dead. My body, it's a gift. Lyra let out a sound like a glass wind chime catching a breeze. A gift? You call this agony a gift? She projected an image into his mind, not of his own healing, but of a memory she had absorbed from the archive. It was a human soldier, centuries ago, on a frozen battlefield. His legs had been blown off, yet he continued to fight, crawling forward on his hands and elbows, his body regenerating the lost limbs in a grotesque, twitching display of flesh and bone. The soldier's face was a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. He was not a warrior. He was a prisoner in his own body, forced to endure an eternity of mending only to be broken again. This is the truth of your gift, Lyra said, her voice devoid of pity. It is not a path to victory. It is a curse of endless suffering. You are not a soldier. You are a lab rat in a universe that has long since thrown you away. The revelation hit Kalen like a physical blow. He sank to his knees, the weight of Lyra's words crushing him. He thought of his own pain, the endless cycle of injury and repair, and for the first time, he saw it not as strength, but as a prison. He was a creature designed to endure, not to live. He was a monument to suffering. But then, a new thought, a defiant spark, ignited in his mind. If his body was a prison, then he would be the one to break the bars. He looked up at Lyra, his eyes hardening. Then I will be the worst lab rat you've ever seen. He stood up, his body still aching, but his resolve now forged in a new fire. You said the human entry is corrupted. Fine. I don't need the past. I need the future. I need to know how to fight them, not with their weapons, but with this. He gestured to his own body. I need to understand what I am. Lyra studied him, her facets spinning with a new, intrigued light. You wish to weaponize your own condition? That is a path of madness. Then lead me into madness, Kalen challenged. Or are you afraid of a little chaos? Lyra agreed, but on her terms. She would not simply give him knowledge. She would make him experience it. She led him to a chamber deep within the archive, a place where memories were not just observed, but inhabited. To understand your potential, you must first understand your limitations, she said, her voice echoing in the vast, empty space. She touched a crystalline panel, and the world dissolved. Kalen found himself standing on a world of searing heat, a desert planet under a red sun. The air was thick and toxic, burning his lungs. His suit was gone. He began to suffocate, his cells screaming as they were cooked from the inside. He fell to the ground, his vision blurring. He was going to die. And then, the change began. His skin thickened, forming a tough, keratinous layer. His lungs adapted, filtering the poison. He watched in horror and awe as his body transformed itself into something that could survive this hell. He endured the heat for what felt like an eternity, a constant, burning agony, before Lyra pulled him back. Gravity, she said simply. The next world was a gas giant, with a gravitational pull that should have crushed him into paste. He felt his bones groan, his muscles tear, his internal organs liquefy. And again, his body fought back. His skeleton reinforced, his muscles densified, his body becoming a compact, dense fortress against the crushing force. He learned to withstand the vacuum of space, the crushing depths of an ocean, the corrosive rain of a chemical world. Each trial was a torment, a violation of his own flesh. He was not just healing. He was being reformed, over and over again, into a being capable of surviving any hell. When Kalen finally emerged from the chamber, he was a different man. He moved with a new, unsettling grace, his body humming with a latent power. He understood now. His healing factor wasn't just about regrowing limbs. It was about adaptation on a cellular level. He could become anything he needed to be, for as long as he needed to be it. He found Lyra in the archive's central nexus, her form shimmering with a cascade of data. "You have learned," she stated, her voice a complex chord of notes. "You are no longer a simple paradox. You are a variable." She turned to him, her multifaceted eyes fixed on his. "The hegemony is not just trying to erase you. They are terrified of you. Your existence proves that their most fundamental law is wrong." She projected an image of the Luminar's core philosophy, the great harmony, the belief that all life must eventually conform to a single, perfect, crystalline state of being. They see your adaptability not as strength, but as a perversion of natural order, a disease that must be cured. Kalen looked at the image, then back at Lyra. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that your species is not a footnote," Lyra said, a new fire in her crystalline eyes. "It is the answer to a question they have spent eons trying to erase. The question is this: what does it mean to be alive? The hegemony says it means to be static, to be perfect. Your species says it means to be dynamic, to be fluid." She gestured to his body. "You are not a weapon. You are a philosophy, and the hegemony will do anything to silence you." The confrontation came not on a battlefield, but in the archive itself. The hegemony had detected Kalen's presence, and they had come to silence the paradox. Luminar soldiers, their bodies encased in seamless white armor, materialized in the luminous pathways, their weapons humming with crystalline energy. They were not here to fight. They were here to contain, to break him. Kalen stood his ground, Lyra at his side. "They will shatter you," Lyra warned, her facets flickering with anxiety. "They will break you down to your component parts and study you until there is nothing left." Kalen smiled, a raw, fierce expression. "Let them try." The first blast of energy struck him, not as a physical impact, but as a wave of pure, crystalline intent. It was designed not to kill, but to disrupt, to unravel the very fabric of his being. Kalen screamed, not in pain, but in defiance. His body reacted. His skin hardened into a diamond lattice, absorbing the energy. His nervous system rewired itself, bypassing the attack's frequency. He was no longer just a man. He was a shield, a fortress of living flesh and bone. The hegemony soldiers fired again and again, their weapons a symphony of destruction. Kalen moved, adapting with every blow. When they fired heat, he became cold. When they fired concussive force, he became weightless. He was a fluid shape in a world of rigid angles, a living answer to their perfect, static order. Lyra watched, her own form shifting, her crystalline structure resonating with his impossible biology. She was an archivist of memory, but she was witnessing something new, the birth of a future. The hegemony's commander, a towering figure of flawless crystal, stepped forward. "Your defiance is illogical," it boomed, its voice a deep, resonant hum. "Your existence is an error." Kalen, now standing amidst a field of shattered crystal, his body shimmering with an inner light, looked the commander in the eye. "My existence is a choice." He took a step forward, and the ground beneath him cracked. He was no longer just adapting to their attacks. He was shaping the battlefield itself, his body influencing the very space around him. He reached out, and a tendril of crystalline energy lashed out from the archive floor, wrapping around the commander's leg. The hegemony leader shrieked, a sound of pure, unadulterated shock, as it was pulled from its perfect form. Kalen advanced, his body a blur of motion. He was no longer just a soldier. He was the embodiment of chaos, a living testament to the fact that life was not about perfection, but about the endless, beautiful struggle to endure. He touched the commander's crystalline form, and his own healing factor surged. It didn't just heal, it rewrote. It didn't just adapt, it evolved. He poured his own chaotic, adaptive energy into the rigid, perfect crystal of the hegemony leader. The commander's form shattered, not into dust, but into 1,000 new, chaotic facets, each one a different color, a different shape, a different potential. The archive of all things shuddered. The great harmony was broken, and in the silence that followed, Kalen stood alone, a man of flesh and bone in a universe of crystal and light. He had survived, he had endured, and he had proven that the greatest story was not one of static perfection, but of the endless, resilient journey of a being who refused to be broken. The first thing Kalen felt was the cold.
Thanks for listening to this Omni-Fi original. Subscribe and hit the bell for a new story every day.